Thanks for joining me today in this latest episode of Corner Your Market podcast. I know I've been dark the last couple of weeks. Well, I'm back with an amazing guest today. Today I have Jessica Chase. She is the co-founder and CEO of Above the Fold, which is a digital marketing and advertising agency here in the Salt Lake area. She focuses mostly on programmatic advertising. I know I haven't talked a lot about programmatic advertising on this podcast because it's not necessarily my expertise. Most of the stuff I've talked about has been SEO, PPC, web design, and all that kind of stuff, but it hasn't really gone into programmatic advertising. But if you really think about all the different advertising that you see on the web, a lot of it is programmatic. This is advertising that you see when you go on different websites. Maybe you're listening to a podcast and an ad comes on. Those are all different elements of programmatic advertising. And if you're wanting to be omnipresent on the web through all the different channels, then you definitely need to consider using programmatic advertising. Now, I'm definitely not qualified enough to talk about it, and so that's why I invited Jessica here on the show. So buckle up. We're going to have a great episode. She's really personable, has a lot of insights. She's been doing this for a long time, and so over the next 20, 30 minutes, we're going to learn a lot about programmatic advertising. So with that said, let's join Jessica in a little bit. Welcome to the latest episode of Corner Your Market podcast. I'm glad you're here. On this podcast, I talk about everything related to digital marketing, from website design and development to SEO, PPC, email marketing, social media, analytics, and everything in between. So if you're a small business owner, a marketing manager in a company, or an entrepreneur, and you want to get yourself up to speed on digital marketing related topics, this is the place for you. So like and share my videos, subscribe to my videos, and every other week you'll be receiving fresh new content that will help you grow your business by helping you improve your digital marketing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. All right. Well, thank you for coming back. So like I said, we're going to talk about programmatic advertising. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. Did I miss anything on the intro that I might have missed?
I think that was a great intro, and thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Excited to be here.
You're welcome. Now, how long have you been doing programmatic? I think I kind of forgot to ask you that part.
Yeah, so I have been doing programmatic specifically for about 10 to 11 years.
Okay, got it.
And then been in advertising marketing for over 20.
Okay, got it. So you've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah.
So for those of us that are, even when I know how to talk SEO and PPC, as you know, right? When I say programmatic, I almost sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you maybe explain what programmatic advertising is, especially for our small business owners who are not familiar with it?
Absolutely. And you're not the only one that doesn't understand what it is. I've done many presentations about what the heck is programmatic advertising, because I think the term programmatic gets confused and it's used in a lot of different ways. But how we define it at Above the Fold, getabovethefold.com, is we define it as any inventory that is on the open internet. Okay. So we have access to 99% of the open internet. That can include any website where people are searching. So if you think Fox News, CNN.
When you say open, where you don't have to log in, right? Because you have to log in to go to Facebook, log in to get into YouTube. Is that what you mean by
Not
open?
Necessarily. It's really just internet that anybody can access.
Okay, got it.
So it could be any app on smart TVs.
Okay.
It could be any app on your phone where you're playing games or you're consuming media, or where you're listening to podcasts, or where you are listening to music like Spotify. Okay. So it's really anywhere where you're on the web, right? So if you're on rollingstone.com, or you're on people.com, or if you're on foxnews.com,
right,
or if you're watching Hulu at night, or you're watching Peacock at night, or if you're listening to a podcast, or if you're listening to SoundCloud, Pandora.
So my experience with that has always been, because I've worked in advertising for a long time as well. It was always expensive. right? I mean, you had very high minimums to get into those things.
Yes.
Has that changed? I think that's changed.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So we work on the best of the best demand side platform called the Trade Desk.
Okay.
And the Trade Desk works with the supply side, which is anybody who has a website. So that would be CNN or Fox News, as well as the demand side. So advertisers who are looking to get on websites.
Okay.
And there used to be, I worked at 1-800-CONTACTS,
Oh, okay.
20 years ago. That's how I started my marketing career.
Okay.
And 20 years ago, we would buy a lot of media on cable TV. And our customer persona was women who were between, 30 and 50 or whatever, because they made the buying decisions in the home.
Right.
But we weren't able to segment by contact lens wearers. We were just assuming that it was women. They were the ones that were making the decisions. So we would serve a ton of inventory on Bravo on cable TV. We would serve millions of dollars on Bravo, just saying, hey, we know women probably are watching Bravo, right? And we had huge buy-ins. Like we had to spend millions of dollars on that inventory.
Right,
and now this year, for the first time, if you think about it, the Olympics were on Peacock for the first time. So you could actually consume the Olympics on an app, on a smart TV. Whereas before that, you could only watch the Olympics on cable TV or network TV. And when inventory was on network TV and cable TV, it was just a lot more expensive. I mean, if you think about the Super Bowl, it's coming up.
Yeah.
You have to spend millions of dollars to buy into that because it's largely only on network TV.
Right.
Whereas now, with things kind of transitioning over to smart TV inventory, you are able to buy in at way lower budget amounts. So our minimum is only $5,000 for TV ads. And the reason we have that minimum is we don't want to serve too little inventory where it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, like, you don't have to spend millions of dollars anymore. And the targeting is a lot more targeted. So we can target contact lens wearers and women who are between a certain age and have a certain income. So you don't have to do that spray and pray methodology that people used to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, basically, if I'm understanding correctly, are you saying that a small business owner could potentially advertise, have their ad show up like during the Olympics? Is that conceivable?
Yeah.
Like, so if the Super Bowl was on like, let's say, I don't know, I think Fox has it this year. If they were to stream it online, then same thing, right? You could conceivably have your ad on. That's pretty awesome.
It's
right?
it's a cool thing for small business owners because now they can get on smart TV ads at a lower budget.
Right.
They don't need to spend millions of dollars anymore.
So what are some of the specific, like when you talk to small business owners, what are some of the things that you have to overcome to kind of help them understand the value of this?
Yeah, I think when it's a small business owner, I mean, a lot of them are really bootstrapped and they need to see, like, we're putting this investment in, what are we going to get out of it? And so sometimes they've never tested anything like this before. So it's literally and figuratively impossible to forecast something for them. If they don't have any conversion rate data from any past campaigns, truly it is, they just need to test it.
Yeah. Because I mean, small business, when I say small business, I'm talking about maybe $5-10 million a year and above, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like bootstrapping people. Although the small business, I think the SBA defines a small business as even somebody that's 500 million a year, which I don't consider to be a small business. That seems like a long time, you know?
Yeah.
But they're already advertising on things that they do billboards, right? They do different things that are several $1,000s. And to say that now you have, for the same kind of budget, you now have access to a much wider audience. I think there's a lot of value there. What are some good examples that maybe you have come across where it's worked really well, and maybe the different things that they've done that's worked really well?
Yeah. So some examples of clients that we've run with are, one example would be, we worked with an insurance company that had really a solid SEO strategy. Like they had really invested a lot of money into their SEO. They're ranking really well on their branded keywords. They're ranking well on industry terms. They really largely were not spending a lot of money on paid search.
Okay.
And they layered programmatic advertising in with very stern targets, right, regarding their customer persona. So it was still very targeted to who they know will sign up with them. But we were serving on smart TV ads, audio ads, podcast ads to that customer persona, basically generating the awareness so that they would get more searches. Right. And so since they ranked well on SEO, it just was a really good combination because really they needed more awareness of their brand so that they could get more keyword searches, right?
That's a great example, because the way I see programmatic layered in is when you think of the marketing funnel, right? Mm-hmm. You have the awareness. People have to be aware of your business, your service, your product.
Yeah.
There has to be a certain degree
in order to click on anything.
Yeah. There has to be awareness, right? And then once you are aware, then I forget all the steps, but once you're aware, then there's that downstream effect of now you're considering the product.
Yes, consideration.
Right? So you learned, I need that watch. Oh, I'm going to buy this brand. And then you do a search. Then when you do search, you got to show up, right? So a lot of times when we do SEO, a lot of people complain that there's not enough right people coming in. But I think if you layer it with programmatic, with some kind of an awareness message, then when that awareness goes up, then it's natural that they would, and you've got good SEO, that it's going to then come through the SEO channel as well.
Exactly.
Right? And PPC as well at the same time. So
you've got to have a balance, right? And I've been doing this for a long time, since the 90s, and I'm well aware that Google exists. Everybody loves Google. Everybody loves Meta. But if you're only spending money lower in the funnel, you're not going to gain market share. And so I did a survey on LinkedIn a while back, and I said, what's more important, awareness or clicks? Because a lot of times, because I'm more upper mid funnel in what I do, people are like, well, where's all the clicks? And, why is it not looking good in Google Analytics and all of these things? And it's like, well, we're one of the first ways somebody found out about the brand, and 67% of people find out about a brand through TV. Yeah. But they can't click on that. They can't click on that asset, right? Yeah. But maybe they're scrolling on Meta when they're watching TV, or maybe they're like, oh gosh, I really need that. I'm going to go to Google and search for it, right? And so when I did that survey on LinkedIn, it was like 50% of people said awareness was more important. 50% of people said clicks were more important. And it's like, well, you won't get the clicks unless you have awareness, right? Yeah, you won't gain market share.
I think Google, and to an extent Facebook, when you say Meta, you're meaning, just in case people don't know, Meta is owned by, Facebook is owned by Meta. Meta is the parent company. And they own Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. There's a bunch of other companies that they own. They get the last click attribution, right, in marketing, which is
not Meta all the time,
but Google does.
Well, if you think about Google, what did they do in the 90s? Smartest move ever. They built a reporting platform around their business. Yeah, Google that says that they're winning all the time. Yeah, I know. And for 20 years, people are still using that. Yeah, and they're not questioning it. Right. Like, I do know some advertisers who are like, this is a really big conflict of interest. I'm going to go ahead and work with a marketing mix modeling company to see what's really driving growth for my business. But there are largely still a lot of people that only rely on that.
But even if you think of like a consumer behavior, people, by the time they do a search and are ready to click, they've already, the programmatic side has already done all the work, right? You've got the awareness, you got the consideration, you've built that excitement with the marketing message, you've put all this stuff out there. They're all excited, the pump is primed already. And then they do a search, and then they're like, oh, I'm going to buy this. Mm-hmm. And then Google Analytics reports and says, oh, 90% of the sales came from PPC or SEO because that's the last thing that they recorded, right?
Well, and Google wants to look like the winner in all scenarios. Yeah. They just barely released Meridian, which is a multi-touch attribution kind of view, but advertisers will have to upgrade their costs in order to see that level of reporting. And I still am very skeptical of it because it's still Google owning the data, and they're still, I think, going to spin the story to say we're driving all the clicks, we're driving all the orders, right? Right. No, that's a good point, and I just find that very interesting to me. So in terms of we've covered what is programmatic, we've kind of covered a little bit about the value and things like that.
What can a small business expect? Like if they were to work with you, right? What can they expect? Like, can you walk us through that in terms of, is it a 3-month engagement, 6-month engagement? What can, like you've talked about it lifting SEO, like in that example that you gave, but what are some of the things that they could expect, like some realistic goals for programmatic campaigns?
Yeah, every advertiser is so different. Like if it's a B2B company, they could have a sales cycle of 12 months.
Right.
Whereas if it's like a direct to consumer company, it could be 1 day.
Right.
And so every company needs an individual consultation to say, like, first of all, have you spent in advertising in the past? What were the results? And, are you spending a little bit in Google? Are you spending money on SEO to make sure that you're showing up if somebody searches for you? That's important. Otherwise, if we show smart TV ads
and they can't find you,
they're going to find a competitor. Right.
That's a good point.
And so that's kind of
they need
part
both of us.
Yes. And so it's part of the consultation to say, do you have a functioning website?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Some people don't.
And then can somebody submit a lead on your website?
Can you track it, right? Yeah.
Do you have some way of people, if somebody searches for your brand name, can they find you?
Right.
And then also, do you have assets, right? Do you have actual images? If not, we help with that. But what I'm saying is it's important to understand each individual small business to say, like, what's the goal? What's your customer persona? Make sure that everything's functioning right. And then at that point, it would be, let's figure out how to drive growth. And let's figure out how to work with your SEO channel or your paid search channel to drive lift on those channels using TV or more display or whatever it is. Because in the findings that we have, when we look across all of our clients, if somebody's got Google Live already and they add display on programmatic display, it more than doubles the conversion rate on the website.
That's awesome.
If they add TV, it's about 3 or 4% increase in conversion rate. But we've all been kind of knowledgeable about omni-channel experience for the last 20 years, right? We know that you need to have an omni-channel experience. You need to have multiple people on the soccer team in order to get the ball in the goal.
Yeah.
And so so the studies say that if you have 5 channels live, your conversion rate will increase by 77%.
So when you mean by channels, you mean like PPC, SEO, programmatic, maybe television,
Meta.
Okay, so you have to have all of these different channels live, running, active, well optimized. And if you do that, 77%, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the likelihood of getting the V, right?
Yeah.
Is higher if you've got an omni-channel experience. And you want to make sure that the ads that you're presenting to a brand new person that's never been exposed to your brand is a different message than somebody that's already been learning about you, that's well aware of you, that may be on your cookie pool or your site retargeting pool. You want to make sure that if they've gone to your cart, that they're seeing a cart specific ad.
Right.
So the creative should be different across those different channels as well.
The creative part is interesting to me because you're obviously only talking about the inventory and where you can place it and things like that. How much of a role does the actual creative play? I mean,
it's important.
You got to have good creative, right? So,
absolutely.
So you said you help with creative. How much do you guys help? Like, do you guys have a studio, photographers? You guys have storyboarding people that kind of put an ad together?
So we don't really specialize in like B-roll or high-end video production. We can put videos together if people do have B-roll already available, and we do display assets for sure.
Okay, got it.
But we typically partner with companies that do more high-end production, or a lot of our clients already have videos that they've produced through different vehicles. It's funny, I ran into a client this week that had worked with a programmatic company that didn't do any creative testing.
Oh, okay.
Didn't even do any campaign testing for like a year. And they were paying this company a lot of money. There were no optimizations. There were no creative testing. And we definitely are big believers in testing. A/B
How did
testing.
that campaign perform? Were they happy with it still? It's like set it and forget it, right? That's what they did.
I think as part of their overall strategy, it was okay, but I mean, it definitely could have been well improved. If
you're losing money, you're leaving money on the table. Yeah.
Like you can do testing across geofences, locations, creative, different customer personas. I mean, there's endless amounts of testing that you can do. And there definitely is creative fatigue. Like you want to switch out your creative regularly.
Absolutely. We try to do, when we run Facebook ads for our clients, we try to switch them out every 60 days at minimum, just because seasons change, things change. You don't want to see summer ads in the winter. It's like, it just doesn't jive with people. So
exactly.
So now I have to just kind of switch topics, just to not switch topics necessarily, but bring up the big elephant in the room, AI.
Yeah.
But how is AI impacting programmatic advertising?
Yeah, it's funny because AI has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And now it's
automation has been, right?
Yeah.
Machine learning, automation.
Machine learning.
Yeah.
And now it's like this big thing.
Yeah. Well, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
DeepSeek or Seek or whatever that is. Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the Trade Desk, if you research the Trade Desk, I mean, they've already had machine learning and AI as part of their platform for many years. Same with Google.
Yeah.
Like Google ABCD tests, I think they test 10 different copy sets against each other now.
They do. They have 15. I think you can put 15. I got to remember. They have 4 headlines, 15 descriptions, I believe. And then you have 5, you have a lot. You enter it in and it tests it automatically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's already doing that. And it already has been doing that. Same with the Trade Desk and demand side platforms. They test different creatives against each other, and they're serving the best creative at all times and the best audiences at all times. And
so how are you, is there a lot of AI involved in tracking people too? Because there's a lot of audience building that you have to do, right?
Yeah. And everything is really anonymized.
Okay.
Right. So it's not like I'm Jessica Chase, mother of 3, that owns a marketing agency. It's like Jessica is 777999 user ID.
Right.
And she has these different purchase behaviors and these different, elements to her personality.
Yeah.
And she's aggregated with millions of other data sets.
Right.
To then
build an audience segment.
Yes.
Basically, we're
and then the AI says, well, who's more likely to convert? Well, that CPM is going to be higher.
Right.
And multiple advertisers are going to be bidding on that one user. And so you may have to pay a little bit more for that user.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I think it freaks people out a little bit when we hear about tracking, but obviously our cell phones are tracking us, whether we like it or not.
Google's tracking you.
Google's tracking
Meta's
you.
tracking you.
Tracking you.
If you go to match.com and you select the terms and conditions, you're saying, I'm okay for you to, when I log in, share my data.
Yeah.
And you're saying that to your credit card companies.
Yeah.
You're saying, it's not.
Every purchase you make, when you go to Home Depot and you say, send my receipt to my email address, it's a great feature, but now they have your email address. Now they know exactly who you are, right? Not that they didn't before.
To a certain extent. I do feel like privacy has come a long way in the sense that they don't really align your user ID with your name, or I think especially in the programmatic realm, we don't want to access personally identifiable information at all. And we would prefer that it's anonymized. And I think that's where things are headed from a privacy perspective. We don't know that you're you. We just know that you prefer these type of ads. And you could argue, do you want to see an ad that's not relevant to you, or do you want to see ads that are relevant to you?
I would like to see ads that are relevant to me, but as a consumer, I prefer no ads.
Lately, I see a million pharmaceutical ads. And those are not relevant to me. So it's I would rather see an ad for something that I want to purchase.
That you didn't mean to click on?
I don't know. I don't know how I got in the pharmaceutical bucket, but...
Yeah. But targeting from a marketing standpoint, we want to be able to target the right people, because then you're not wasting money, like you said, on that Bravo channel, right? That you mentioned earlier. So I think there's an element of targeting that's really good with programmatic. There's that comes with the placement of ads, so you can place it in the right spot. And then it also helps supplement your SEO, PPC, your website, and maybe other forms of advertising that you're doing and things like that. And then it's also been made more affordable and accessible to a small business owner. Because when I worked at the large agencies back in the day, I mean, you had $10,000, $12,000 minimums just to get in, and you weren't even sure what you were getting out of those, right? So, so I think it's become very accessible for a lot of people. So I know I've definitely talked to a lot of our clients about it, and they've really appreciated the information. So what are some really, really cool features that people should be aware about? You know, like there's geofencing, there's all these cool things that programmatic gets attached to. What are some cool ones as we kind of wrap up here in a little bit? Yeah,
geofencing is cool. I mean, you can get down to the inch on targeting somebody.
That's scary.
The scale on an inch is going to be very small. But I mean, we can draw a fence around an event filled with a bunch of dentists, right? And maybe that is applicable to a dental software company or something like that, right? So we can actually draw a box around the event, create an audience of those that are at the event, and then serve them ads after, or drive booth traffic to that event. The trends that I'm seeing this year, it seems that people are, you know, pulling back their kind of upper funnel spend a little bit.
Oh, they are on the awareness side.
Yeah. And maybe they're spending, like an example is we have a client that spends a ton of money on, you know, Meta upper funnel prospecting. And they really want to make sure that they're supplementing or recapturing lost revenue on that traffic. So their cookie pools are robust with people that they've found to be net new users, but they want that omni-channel experience, right? So a lot of people are expanding their site retargeting to smart TV site retargeting, as well as podcast site retargeting, as well as audio site retargeting. And so it's a lot of, like, I think in Google, you can only do site retargeting on certain ad formats and certain reach, right? But it's getting more reach on that site retargeting pool, people who have already expressed interest in working with you, and now you're just getting them to convert.
So basically, when you say, like, say, podcast site retargeting, you mean that if I listen to a podcast, you're going to reserve me an ad later on or something like that? Okay.
Well, no, what it means is, let's say I went to your website, and now I'm in your site retargeting pool. So now I can be served not only display ads.
Oh, I see.
Not
if
only
I go
native
listen to
ads.
a podcast, I listen to it there. Okay.
So now I went to your website. Now I'm retargeted on TV,
wherever I'm advertising.
Spotify, podcasts, display, native, Fox News, everything.
I think that is really cool because let's say somebody sees, I'm just going to try to make it very practical for, let's say you own like a plumbing company, right? That you have maybe 3 or 4 locations, and you're doing you have a decent plumbing enterprise, and your vans have, you know, myplumbingcompany.com, right? And then you've spent all this money on your vans, having all this beautiful artwork. So somebody sees that, goes to your site, right? And then all of a sudden they're listening to this podcast, not that there's advertising here, but, you know, this podcast, and they see My Plumbing Company ad. They go to YouTube, they see that. They go watch the Olympics or whatever.
It's the omni-channel experience again.
It's that experience, right? So I'm just trying to make it very relatable for people to say, okay, that's where programmatic comes in and can really boost your stuff. So,
and from a B2B perspective, I mean, there's a lot of companies that have us run an ABM strategy, which is like, okay, our sales team has defined 50 accounts that are important to us this month that we're actively selling into as part of our omni-channel approach, right? We're calling them, we're emailing them.
Yeah.
We need your help hitting them on smart TV ads, podcast ads, display, native, video, as well as us calling them to remind them we want to work with you.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, I came across an AI company that does voice calls.
Yeah.
So there you go, right? You could feed that into them, and then they could be calling people with this automated voice. So, well, Jessica, this was really productive. Any resources that you would recommend for some additional resources that people could maybe go to? Like, is there like a website where you can learn all about, obviously your website, but...
Yeah, you can go to getabovethefold.com. We have a lot of blog content. I also love the Trade Desk. I mean, they're an industry leader. Do
they have a website?
They trade on the stock market. They have a ticker symbol and everything.
Okay, got it.
They've even created a cookie alternative called UID 2.0.
Oh, okay.
And they've created it to be open source for people to use.
Okay.
But the Trade Desk is the leader in programmatic advertising. So
so the Trade Desk website would have a lot of information in there.
They post.
And if people want to get a hold of you, I know we talked about your website. It's getabovethefold.com. And then how about, I'll also drop all this in the show notes as well. But you also have a TikTok channel, don't you? I mean, you
Yes.
guys have TikTok. You guys are everywhere.
Programmatic ads on TikTok, and then Instagram's just Get Above the Fold, and
Above the Fold,
Facebook
okay.
is Get Above
What is
the
the source
Fold.
of the name?
Yeah, that's a great
Because
question.
I have an opinion on that. Go ahead.
So we serve on a lot of, well, let me back up. I have a background in newspaper.
Okay.
So I was the editor of the paper at Westminster College and editor of the paper at Alta High School. And I really wanted to go into journalism.
Okay.
But when I was graduating college, journalism was largely, unfortunately, dying. I mean, a lot of people weren't reading the newspaper anymore. And I mean, it was a bummer, right? I wanted to write for a newspaper, and but I worked at 1-800-CONTACTS at the time, and I was the marketing administrative assistant, and I was helping every single person in the department with whatever their projects were. And I was like, oh, it would be fun to go into marketing. So I ended up, going into marketing. But the reason we created the name that we have now is we are able to serve on viewable inventory. So if you think on your website, you have to scroll down in some instances. So above the fold is a newspaper term saying that's like premium inventory above the fold. But there's also premium inventory above the fold on websites.
Right.
And so we try to serve within that viewable inventory.
Yeah. I have a little bit of a different experience with above the fold because, I mean, I understand the term, but I was part of a usability study on a website about 10, 15 years ago. This website got 120,000 people a day on the website. It was a pretty big website, lots of traffic. And so we did a usability study on that. And what we found, at least at that time, is that above the fold doesn't actually occur on websites because the user behavior is that when they land on a website, the first thing they do is scroll or click. It's not a static experience. And so what we found is that the concept of above the fold doesn't actually exist in digital media. But that was a small one study that we did. And
it was probably a long time ago. There is the ability to do that now.
Okay. So that was 2010, 2011. Far back,
Yeah, it's kind of a newer thing that's been happening probably, I would say, over the last 7 years or so.
Okay.
There's companies like Quality Alliance that can verify that you are in viewable inventory on a website. And I think our attention spans are shorter now. And so it's like a lot of times when you read an article on people.com or rollingstone.com, you don't scroll as much as you think you're going to. Like you read the first couple paragraphs.
And then there's the endless scroll. Have you tried to get to the bottom of Facebook? I've tried at times saying, okay, how far can I go? It's like,
they want you to do that.
You never get to the bottom.
They want you to scroll as much as possible.
You're just scrolling forever and ever. So, well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining. I think we had a great conversation. I learned a lot about programmatic. Obviously, you're an expert, so I'm going to point everybody to come to you if they need information on programmatic and things like that. So appreciate you being on the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.